Content warning. On this podcast, we discuss sensitive issues, including but not limited to swearing, tasteless jokes, situations of a sexual nature, and drug use. This podcast is not intended for children. Hello, and welcome to Fight Club. I'm Alter Ego Bugs.
And I'm depressed woman who walks into traffic. Bam bam. So many people walk into traffic in this movie.
Yeah. Which is why I was convinced Marla was not a real person.
Right.
Because when he is arguing with her, she walks back and forth in traffic and does not get hit and die.
Mm-hmm. No, she's just suicidal.
Anyway, this is actually Bibliorex.
Yeah.
We do not talk about Bibliorex.
And second rule is we don't talk about Bibliorex.
And this is our bad book, bad movie.
We came up with this one because we found out that Bugs had not watched Fight Club during the Milo.
Devouring Milo.
Yeah, Devouring Milo.
Yeah, so I actually recently re-listened to that, and that was a big part of your argument with me, was that a movie like Fight Club does it well, and I kept trying to tell you Devouring Milo does it very badly.
Well, I think what I was going for there is when you have an unreliable narrator that can't even trust themselves to tell the right story,
Right.
then, you know, anything is possible. There could be anything actually happening in the reality of the world that you just don't know until you're just told by the story.
I have to say, this movie started out knowing that Tyler Durden was, it is Durden, right?
Yeah.
This movie obviously started out with an alter ego, Tyler Durden, and ended with an alter ego, Tyler Durden, and Devouring Milo started out with a psychotic brother and ended with a Tyler Durden. At the end, she painted herself into a corner and could not escape.
Yeah, the only way you could get yourself out is Ghost Brother.
Ghost
Crazy
Brother.
werewolf.
Spencer is a lie. All right, so we did Fight Club because it seems pivotal to a lot of modern media and incel culture.
Yeah, super incel culture, ironically.
I did not know that. I have seen Fight Club memes, and I didn't realize that that was like a dog whistle incel thing. I'm sure there are people who just, like me, watch it and was like, oh, wow, that was really cleverly done. But I think the majority of people are going to be like, yeah, I'm Tyler Durden.
Yeah. No, there were a lot of, let's say, 12-year-olds when they watched this movie. This really meant something to them, but they took all the wrong lessons out of it. I won't say who, but it's me.
How old were you when we watched this?
I was 12.
Okay. I guess on DVD. Yeah.
Well, I might have caught it on cable. Like, it may have came out on cable at that point. I can't remember. But, took all the wrong lessons from this that you weren't supposed to, which I think part of that is because the movie kind of muddles the message with its subtlety.
Yeah.
Like, the parts that were supposed to be a little bit louder from the book were made way more subtle to the point that you almost can't see them unless you know what you're looking for.
I didn't realize that this was a critique until we got to the cult shit. And that's frickin' 90 minutes into the 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
Like, and I could tell, oh, this is when they stopped posting memes. All of the memes
it's
are
all the
frickin'
first half.
Yes.
When Brad Pitt is being super charismatic
and skinny and muscly. And
there, you've got Edward Norton in there threatening his boss with an AR-15 or something.
Yeah. All of the memes. I didn't even know Edward Norton was a character in this. I only knew Brad Pitt, hot fighty guy.
Yeah.
That's all I knew about this.
I mean, to be fair, if you were to forget everything except one thing, it would be how hot Brad Pitt is in this movie. This guy, that guy is chiseled out of fucking glass.
Yeah.
That shit is crazy.
I mean, there's a couple shots of him where you very nearly see Dick, and he is just so taut.
I mean, yeah, that
There is
V-taper, I don't know if he's ever drank water.
There is not a ounce of fat on his body.
Mm-hmm. And if it is, it's in those beautiful ruddy cheeks.
Yeah, I mean, that jawline, my God.
Yeah. Well, let's stop idolizing Brad Pitt further like everyone in the 2000s did. I read the book, and this obviously was your first time watching the movie.
Right.
And I've watched the movie probably several times. So, do you want to go over the movie and I'll add in my bits? Or
Yeah, I can. I mean, as far as plot goes, I didn't really keep a good track of the plot because I was so confused.
Yeah, there was a lot going on the first watch through.
Yeah, and in Devouring Milo, you told me, oh, so and so isn't real. That's the twist in
Yeah, you didn't
Fight
know
Club.
who,
but I didn't know who, and obviously this guy is like having his midlife crisis. Everything is drab and boring. He cares about furniture. He is obviously just sad stereotype office worker.
Well, part of that is this is a big thing in the 90s when office culture was just being established at the time. And, rampant consumerism. And, like, the idea is that his life is so empty. Like, he doesn't have, like, any emotional attachments or family ties or anything like that. Literally, the only thing he has in his life is his job and the stuff he buys to put in his apartment.
Right. And instead of seeking out a partner or friendships or relationships, he ends up at support groups for people who have real problems.
Yeah, he is so emotionally unattached from anything. He is so lacking in emotional intelligence that he needs something to just like feel so that he can sleep. And it's very much like, it's kind of like seeing a hooker. It's just getting that emotional release so that you don't go crazy.
Well, something interesting. I used to feel this way going to church. I couldn't get that crying emotional release unless it was a really good church time.
Yeah.
And you'd go down front and kneel and cry, and people would come around and put their hands on you and hug you and kiss you, and you would get that huge emotional release. And it's that same kind of addiction where you don't have that emotionally satisfying relationship in yourself or in your own life.
Well,
I thought that was really interesting that he was getting it through this other way, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the movie very clearly shows that this is not a healthy way to do this.
No. And especially it does show him like he's a parasite. He's feeding off of these other people's feelings and sympathy. He's not giving them anything.
Yeah, which is
he's
why
not there to listen to them.
Right.
He's there to get that release himself. He doesn't care about Chloe or Bob or anyone there.
Yeah, he just needs something to like shake up his emotional state so that he can feel some feelings and go to bed.
This is why we, the midlife crisis, get a gambling addiction or go buy a fancy car. Like, it just takes a really different, interesting way of managing that need. And I know in many of our episodes, we've talked about how men don't have permission to give hugs.
Yeah, this really goes into that. And there's also like one thing that is, I think it's just as confused in the main character in the story itself. There's this lack of emotional intelligence, but also it's blaming women for it.
Yes.
Because at one point, Tyler is talking to himself in the bathroom. And he's saying,
yeah, we were raised by women. We're men raised by women. Why would getting another woman solve the problem?
Right. And if that was true, because the reality of the situation, like especially in the late 80s, early 90s, this is when women were also getting into the workforce, also getting desk jobs. So it's not that women were the ones that were raising boys at the time. It's that none of the kids were getting raised by hardly anybody because they get
Right.
planted in front of the TV.
I mean, 70s and 80s was latchkey kids.
Yeah.
Very seriously.
Yeah. So I think that was just a mistaken concept right there.
But also, it's said by Tyler to the sad office worker ego.
Well,
I call Teddy.
Yeah.
I was calling the office worker ego
The narrator.
Teddy. So that's what I'm going to call him. And then, of course, Brad Pitt is Tyler.
Right.
Tyler was the one telling Teddy that, though.
But the movie or the book never goes back and like tries to correct that either.
Right, because
That's
we
just
don't have female characters or female engagement except for Marla. And she is something to be used
Yeah.
by Tyler and by Teddy.
Well, I think it's done better in the book, but I don't think it's really done terribly in the movie. But Marla she's like a really weird kind of femininity for the movie, because she is definitely a feminine force in the movie, but she's not like traditionally feminine. She's not nurturing or caring or anything like that.
But it really feels like they look at her like she's a whore. It feels like they are using her and they don't see her as a person.
Right.
Neither ego treats her like she's a human being who is a person.
Yeah. Well, with that, it was done a little bit better in the book, because the alter ego Tyler is the one who pursues Marla. He actually, deep down, actually likes Marla, and that's the part of his emotions that express that. Because initially he hates her because she can see him, basically, and he also loves her because she sees him for the same reason.
Like she makes him vulnerable?
Yeah, he hates that she makes him vulnerable, but at the same time, it is someone that he has a tenuous emotional connection to, like, immediately. And I think that's what attracts his subconscious to her.
So the first part of the movie, as far as plot goes.
Oh, do you want to talk about the intro for a second? Like how 2000s MTV it was? Because, boy, that really took me back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, so many 90s movies flashbacks too. Like I was getting really strong, like The Matrix, like a lot of the CGI.
Yeah. Helena Bonham Carter, for one.
Yeah.
One of the names on the intro. Also Meatloaf. And also Jared Leto.
Which even after you told me that, I couldn't recognize him.
Yeah,
but
I
to
had
me, he
no
looks
idea.
like an alien anyway.
Yeah, I had no idea that he was in this movie until this last time I watched it. That was just bizarre. Like, I don't know why they needed Jared Leto for this movie.
Maybe this was like one of his first movies and he just...
I think so. But he was already big in a band at that point, I think.
Oh, I have no
Sure.
idea.
Yeah, he's the lead singer of 30 Seconds to Mars.
I thought he was an actor in
I
those
think he was
superhero movies now.
He is.
Oh.
But I'm pretty sure he was a singer in a band first.
Oh.
But apparently he's been in movies at least since the 90s, so I could be wrong. Maybe he was an actor and then a singer.
He's a busy guy, apparently.
Yeah, I've never followed his career very closely, so.
So the first part is just we're establishing Teddy, the narrator.
Edward Norton.
Edward Norton. I'm calling him Teddy.
Okay.
As he is the narrator. And he is the one who comes in and we start out, of course, with the gun in his mouth. And then it's like, wait, how did I get here?
I bet you're wondering how I got in this situation.
Yeah. And so then we are flashing back. The whole movie, basically, is the flashback. So immediately you forget about all that because we're off to the races.
He can't sleep. He's got insomnia, as we said.
Doctors ignore him because he doesn't have real problems.
Yeah, that doctor was crazy, right?
I mean, that is not unheard of to have like serious insomnia and a doctor to just say, go take a walk in the day and then just get sleep. Like, especially in the 90s, they would either give you sleep pills or ignore you.
Yeah.
But
guess so,
I think
but-
it's to emphasize him as a victim of the system. No one takes his problem seriously.
No one cares.
No one cares. He is struggling day to day. He never gets sleep. His boss is a moron. You know, we kind of have the same setup as like Office Space.
Yeah.
You know, and it's that same caricature office worker who is just a cog in the wheel, nameless, personless, and, you know, nothing. And he starts trying to make more interesting, like make his life more interesting.
Well, the doctor tells him in the office, because Edward Norton, Teddy, says to the doctor, "Come on, I'm in pain." And the doctor says, "Oh, do you want to see pain? You go to these support groups and
Yeah, and you'll see real pain.
you'll see some suffering."
And that's where he went to it. And at first it was more like watching a show. And then he started getting that release.
Yeah.
And he also is trying to like make his travel with his work more interesting. You know, and he is kind of trying, but everything is one use. He makes the point of everything on
Everything is
airplane
single serving.
is a single serving. And that's how he is. And then he meets Tyler Durden. This is where his alter ego splits. Because, woohoo, at the end, big surprise, it's still him.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, did you notice at the beginning, before he meets Tyler, the little flashes? Did you notice that?
which flashes?
At the very beginning.
What do you mean?
There were like really subtle, fast little flashes at the beginning. Like when he was at the doctor, there was a little quick flash and it was Brad Pitt for like a split second.
Oh, when there's flashes, I close my eyes. I get migraines from flashing lights. So
Okay.
a lot of times in movies, I did catch a couple of times when there was like a dick on the screen, like they
Yeah.
would insert those.
I think it happens like every time there's like some kind of emotional stressor or something in a scene.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
No, I
those
didn't
were
see
like
that.
those were like just little pressure moments that were pushing Tyler out, is what it seems like the movie's trying to say with those moments.
Oh, so we're starting to see a little bit visually presented that this alter ego is making himself known.
Yeah, I
Before
think-
we actually meet.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think that's like a neat little Easter egg. Like the first time you watch that movie, you probably don't notice, but the
And
second
you've
time
watched it
going back,
11 or 12 times now.
yeah, so I notice it every time.
We have to move on from the
Yeah,
basis of this if we're going to get through this. Anyway, so he meets Tyler Durden. Durden sells soap. And he comes back home to his apartment, and his apartment blew up. Teddy is just like, I don't know who to call. He calls Marla, and then he hangs up, and then he calls
Tyler.
Tyler. And they meet at a bar, and they drink and hang out, and then...
And Tyler is just like, oh yeah, everything's bullshit, man. Consuming products is just bullshit, and you should just let it go. Don't worry about all the stuff you've bought.
Yes, and it was very much, that was when I was like, oh, this is incel culture. This guy is incel. Ego, basically.
Yeah.
And because he does the whole, you know, we should be apes in the forest beating our chests and fighting each other and getting food and the women
Yeah,
apes. We should,
hunting elk
why
in the
why are we
canyon.
dealing with all this, you know, economy bullshit and jobs and cars and insurance?
Yeah. Which it's really funny.
It is.
Because in real life, the incel culture, with zero irony, just went ahead and adopted that movie. With zero understanding of any of the critique that was actually going on behind it.
Right. So they go out into the street, and Tyler's like, hit me. And they have a little fight. And that's when, I guess, Fight Club is born. And also I feel like that is when his engagement with Tyler as his alter ego really happens too.
Yeah.
Like initially at the bar, he's like, eh.
Well, he already seems like, at the bar, he already seems like fascinated with Tyler. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, that's just the charismatic cult leader shit going on there, which is what he wants. But one thing about the fighting, so obviously the fighting is just Edward Norton beating the shit out of himself in the parking lot. And the movie presents it at first, before you know the twist, that, oh, these two guys are fighting in the parking lot, and then these other guys come, and they're like, oh, hey, Can we join? Mm-hmm. But in reality, it's just a guy in a parking lot beating the shit out of himself.
And they come over to watch.
And, like, why do you walk over there and instead of being like, oh, this is clearly a schizophrenic man, I'm going to leave, just be like, oh, hey, you're beating the shit out of yourself. Can I join?
Well, considering they were the foundation of his Fight Club, can we really honestly ask that question? They're interested in beating people up?
I guess. I don't know.
And Marla asked Tyler who he was talking to, and that made it seem like Teddy was the alter ego, and not the real one. But where Teddy was the narrator, he seemed like he was the main ego.
Right.
So that was kind of like confusing. And at this point I said, does Ted have a split personality? Because it was like, obviously, even watching it and knowing the twist at the end, there's still hints in the movie.
Yeah.
It's still telling you something weird is going on here.
Going back and watching it, I don't know how you could watch this movie and not
think
foresee
something
it.
is going out.
Yeah.
So something here is clearly going on.
Also, hearing Brad Pitt say, I star 69'd you.
So took me back
I'm
to the
so
90s.
fucking old.
Took me back to the
Jeez.
90s. My God. I was trying to remember even what it was called when
Right.
you called back someone who had just called you. And then he said that, and I was like, damn, that is what it was. And like, I remember using a payphone on the street because we would stop and be like, oh, we need to call home and ask if we need milk and bread before we head on the way, you know? And you would just stand and let it ring and ring and ring because some people didn't have answering machines. You know, so it would never get picked up by an answering machine and it could fucking ring forever.
Yeah. Oh, what did you think about the porn splicing thing? I mean, other than the fact that it's just sexual abuse.
Oh.
Did you think anything depthy about that one? I have a theory.
It reminded me of the pervs I worked with at the theater, yes.
That also makes sense, yeah.
And the same people who talked about peeing in the ice cooler, yes. And the same people who chewed on drugs during the shift, yes. He was the embodiment of all of my shitty coworkers at the theater.
Yeah. So that whole thing is just douchey boy stuff that, like, it seems like a 12-year-old would also do that kind of stuff.
Yes, it's a power move. It's just to it's like peeing in the ice cooler.
Right.
It's, I did something and you don't know. And I know and I feel superior, haha.
But in the movie, that actually had a purpose. So you know how Teddy, in the middle of the movie, blackmailed his boss because of all the shit he knew about the cars that were defective and stuff like that, right? That's basically the same thing Tyler does with the rest of his jobs.
Yeah, because he was suing them over the level of urine in the soup or something. He was the one doing awful shit and then getting his employers in trouble for knowing and going and doing the awful shit.
Yeah. But as far as specifically the porn thing, I could be reaching with this, but I feel like it's a little bit of a metaphor. I don't know whether it's on purpose or not. But I feel like it's a metaphor for when you're young, especially like a boy, because like Edward Norton's talking about being like a 30-year-old boy. I think that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. Because you start off as a kid and then you start going through early puberty and start having hormones and start having these urges and start thinking about sexual stuff because one day you're just sitting there watching Cinderella and all of a sudden you're thinking about what someone looks like naked. And So I had that thought. I don't know if that means anything.
I felt like it was more, the way it's in the movie
Just
is
shock value.
Shock value, and also every single thing that Tyler as himself does is a fuck you to the system. Every single behavior, every action, everything is fuck you to the people in charge, broader society, even the feelings of this is a kid's movie, we shouldn't have porn in it, and this is a well fuck you, I want to.
Yeah.
And it's
just general mindless anarchy.
Yes, it is anti anything anyone tells me to do.
Well, it's like they're pretty clear, like in the book especially, there are pretty clear anti-consumerism, anti-capitalist critiques going on that Tyler Durden is doing. He's critiquing those systems, but he's not suggesting anything should be replacing them. He's just saying, let's destroy them.
Yes.
Because I take personal offense to these things.
Yes.
But never says, oh, but we should put something else better in its place.
No, because these are the exact same people who fantasize about a zombie apocalypse where they will come out as the alphas with the guns.
Yeah.
We're not going to build gardens. We're not going to rebuild society. We're not going to get rid of, a credit score. We're going to just burn all this shit down and be, the survivor man just fantasy. Because what they don't have a problem with the system. They have a problem with feeling powerless.
Yeah.
If they were the boss of this office, they wouldn't be having these fantasies.
Right.
They get to, lord it over the peons in the cubicle. You never have this movie from the perspective of the CEO. He doesn't care about any of those fantasies. He's in charge and he's the top dog.
Yeah. Well,
you get it from the people who want to burn it down because they want to come out and be respected because they're powerful and strong. And in this apocalypse, they're the ones with the guns. They're the ones who could come out on top.
Yeah. Well, the incel culture just doesn't apply to people in those positions. They apply to these whiny internet boys that feel disenfranchised just because they're not, like Brad Pitt said, a rock star or an astronaut or something like that. And they feel like since they weren't given the moon, that the world has fucked them over somehow.
Yeah. And recently, there was an article that Aaron Rabinowitz wrote for The Skeptic in England. And it was talking about how young men are feeling disempowered, disrespected, disenfranchised. And that's why they are turning Republican and just abandoning the liberal perspective. And
because the liberal perspective doesn't give them any special power over anybody else.
Right. And as we progress through the movie, I think that article really helps point out why you see very strict hierarchy between, even in the fights, you have a winner and the loser. And you might shake hands afterwards and say, oh, see you next week or whatever. But we have a clear binary, winner and loser. And then once they start bringing people into the house and create a little militia, we have a very strict hierarchy. And we also have Tyler is the top dog. His half of the ego is the top dog, and Teddy isn't. He's on the bottom, and he also has to endure all of these little slights in his own house.
Well, I think you've gotten a little bit off track a little bit, because I feel like the fights themselves, like, throughout the movie, no one's like glorifying anyone who had a good fight or anything like that. They expressly say that, even if I did say they had a good fight or something like that, I wouldn't be talking to the same guy because he's not there in the fight. He's out in public and not in the cult right now. Also, I don't think anyone that is in Project Mayhem knows that Tyler is bipolar, or not bipolar, but like schizophrenic or split personality.
Split personality, yeah.
Right. Tyler, throughout creating Project Mayhem, set everything up so that he wasn't the one in charge. He kind of set it up sort of in the background, like he's in charge, but he's not setting up directly all these orders. And that's why later when Teddy tries to tell everyone to stop, no one listens to him. So it's being set up. That's another thing like Edward Norton was talking about when he was talking to the cop. These are self-sufficient cells that don't require leadership.
But they still worship him and they still follow him.
Oh yeah, he's their idol, but they don't require his say-so on everything, I think is what I was trying to say.
But even within that militia system, you see certain militia members who are older coming in, harassing and beating up the new guys, and they have a really strict hierarchy. And my point with the article is it's talking about how the reason we're losing so many young men
I agree with
to the
that.
strict authoritarian ideals is because you have a strict hierarchy and they know their place within it and they can strive to rise up in it.
Right.
And have you seen the description, the discourse on like Facebook, or it's kind of like a meme talking about what does respect mean?
No, I don't think I have.
So if I said respect is the behavior you use to respond to your better, that's an idea of respect. The other idea of respect is the common human decency you use to another fellow human. They're very different.
Right.
In authoritarian families, like patriarchal families,
Yeah.
you respect your father by obeying everything he says.
Yeah, respect is demanded.
And it can be taken. Respect that is fellow human decency respect, you are supposed, that's the bare minimum behavior toward another human.
Right.
And you can't take that. That is something that you are just supposed to give somebody because they're another person in front of you and you are equal. And you know that you're both equal.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people will say, well, I won't treat you with respect if you won't treat me with respect.
Right.
And what they mean is, I won't treat you like a human being if you don't treat me like a leader. And I think some of the conflict and discussion within Fight Club is that issue of respect. And do we mean human decency or do we mean obeying a leader? And I felt like I feel like the whole, even though incels obviously took the movie, I actually saw it like as we go really downhill with the militia stuff.
Yeah.
And Teddy starts going crazy. Like, obviously, none of this is what I want. This isn't what I want. I didn't want this.
Yeah.
He was just wanting to have that little pedestal within this hierarchy and feel good about where he was.
Right.
And then suddenly the system itself consumed him, which I feel like is what people who criticize patriarchy always point out. Patriarchy harms men.
Yeah.
Because it creates the strict hierarchy that you have to obey, and you can no longer treat each other with basic human decency.
Yeah, I feel like it's a related but separate issue. Because I think with that, like, in the movie Fight Club is just bad therapy. Like, the act of them going in and beating the shit out of each other or getting the shit beaten out of them, that's just bad therapy.
It's so they can feel something.
Right. Because another big theme in the movie, or in the story as a whole, in both, everyone is struggling with nihilism. Nothing matters, and if nothing matters, why do you have to feel anything? It bothers the hell out of the narrator, Teddy, and that's probably part of the reason, like, he can't sleep at night. He doesn't make any emotional connection because nothing matters. But then he meets Marla, and Marla is this character who is fascinated with death, fascinated with things that are thrown away and discarded, genuinely is not afraid of dying, because it only does it once in the movie, but I think it happens like a couple of times in the book, or at least is talked about a couple of times. But Marla is not afraid to try to kill herself. And I think the narrator really wants that for himself. Like, there's a kind of strength there that he can't access because he's afraid and because he's not emotionally intelligent enough to get there on his own which, not trying to idolize killing yourself or anything like that, but just saying that Marla's got a particular kind of strength that comes from being emotionally aware and stuff like that he doesn't have, that he has to try to make up for in Tyler with 100% ego and try to do this kind of performative macho bullshit and like try to prove to himself, like when he's in the car and it's just him talking to himself while driving and the space monkeys are in the back. This is just him performing to himself that he's not afraid to die.
Right.
And it's just him convincing himself that he doesn't have to be afraid of the inevitable death that will one day come for him.
Right, because a lot of the big theme and what they talk about many, many times is, yes, we're all going to die. Only the people in those support groups know it.
Yeah.
Because they're facing these life-ending diagnoses. And it is like he becomes fascinated with their emotions around it. And he starts using that to feel things himself, but he doesn't ever do the work of like, oh, yes, I am going to die. This is what this means. And
he's just getting near that emotional intensity without ever trying to understand it. And I think throughout the process of this story, he comes to start to understand it, but I don't know.
As far as the plot goes, they start bringing their fighters into the house. They build a little army. Tyler disappears. Teddy is chasing around trying to find him. And then they have the big showdown at the end where it's Tyler versus Teddy, Tyler versus Tyler, because, they're the same person. And then at the finale at the end, all these buildings are going to blow up. And Teddy is saying, don't blow them up. We don't need to do this. We don't need to blow them up. And that's where he sticks the gun in his own mouth and is like, I have the gun. I'm the main ego here, and I can destroy you. Yeah. I created you. I can destroy you. And
to signal to himself his lack of fear.
Yes.
Or to, I guess, show the audience. I'm not sure.
Right. That is like his come to Jesus moment is finally, I am willing to kill this part of myself. And by shooting myself in the mouth or whatever, I am finally doing that thing I have been afraid of this whole time.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand, is he dying from getting shot at the end? Like, I couldn't tell how seriously his injury was from shooting himself in the mouth.
No, he just shoots himself in the, like, it fucks up his jaw, but he's not going to die of it.
Okay, because Brad Pitt's character had a fucking hole out the back of his head.
Yeah, I think that was just like a metaphor in that moment. He's not afraid to die or to hurt himself like that. And that kind of just signals him no longer needing Tyler, so Tyler can die.
Right. And I guess it's maybe him trying to integrate within himself both sides?
Sort of, yeah. Like, maybe the understanding and lack of fear without all the ego.
Because it doesn't feel like... I never felt, going through the movie, like he as a character changed or developed. He went to new things and he did new stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't ever feel like as a character he developed.
Yeah, no, he really didn't.
And where he said he was a 30-year-old boy, it really does feel like he has never matured. But on the split side of it, the Tyler character also was a 30-year-old boy, but the one obsessed with cocks and guns and porn.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to finally get to the end of the movie and just see them blow, the whole city up. And was like, wait, this was the end? This is... What? Yeah. I'm dissatisfied here, sir.
Yeah, no, I get that. The book actually ends it differently.
Okay. I was wondering about that.
Right. So the end of the book, because the movie follows it pretty closely, but at the end, Marla, she doesn't get picked up by the space monkeys. She knows that Tyler is going to kill himself, so she goes to all the support groups that he has come to know over the course of the year that he's been going to them, and tells everyone that, oh, he's going to kill himself. Let's go and convince him not to kill himself.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah. So Marla shows up with all these dying people and are just like, yeah, life's worth living. You know, and that coming from all these people that are
Literally dying.
Yeah. But he still does, in the book, he still does the whole shooting himself in the mouth thing. And I can't remember if anything else ever explodes, because the point of the explosion is just to destroy one building in the book. So I feel like the goal was a little bit different. It was still to cause like a financial collapse, but it was like across the country. Like there were still multiple fight clubs setting off multiple bombs, but they were going on in other cities, not, you know, multiple buildings in one area.
Okay. So it was still terrorist activity
Oh,
and
yeah,
behavior
yeah. It was
on a
still
broad scale.
But in the book, the point of knocking down that building was, number one, to kill himself in it so he could die a legend. And two was to knock over that building and have it land on top of a museum. Because there's this kind of mixed message that Tyler goes into, and I think they just cut it entirely from the movie because it makes it super murky. Tyler doesn't care or thinks that no one should give a shit about history. Like at all. Like all those guys that did some kind of architectural feat or did this war or whatever don't matter because it's in the past and it doesn't matter anymore. But at the same time, he thinks that he will be a legend talked about for generations if he just collapses the financial system. And just as a little extra fuck you, he wants to land this building on top of a museum.
Okay.
Because he doesn't like museums.
So he had more complex political thought in the book than we really see in the movie. I mean, they briefly say we're going to screw up all the financial systems and blow it all up.
There was more texture. I don't know about depth. Because they still don't have... There's all the critique and wanting to destroy, but there's still no wanting to put something else in its place.
So he didn't have, like, a manifesto.
No.
An actual explanation of... Okay.
Yeah, it was just about destruction.
See, I really like the idea of ending his personal story with all of these people who had gotten to know him, even under pretense in these communities, bringing him into the fold and saying, we're still here, you should still live, we care about you, because that is the answer to nihilism as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it's community.
If you have community... You will, it's the idea of I didn't kill myself because I have to feed my cat.
Right.
If you have something to care about, you can do another goddamn day.
Right.
And I feel like that is really what all of these people need is community that is wholesome and healthy and loving, not the online shit show that is Twitter and, wherever else.
There is another little extra bit that happened in the book. And it kind of just lays on a little extra layer. So at the end, he wakes up in the hospital, and he refers to it as being in heaven, like semi-metaphorically. I'm not sure what he's doing, but he's just like, oh yeah, God is a doctor, and all the angels are nurses and stuff that work here. So he's just in a hospital, and he's just like, oh, Marla calls me from Earth every now and then. And we talk. So I'm not sure what exactly is going on there. But at the same time, he comes to the conclusion and says, people aren't actually shit. Because throughout the whole book, it's just a mire of him just being like, everyone fucking sucks. I hate everyone. Everyone should fucking die. I want to kill all these goddamn pandas.
Oh, God. Glad they didn't do that.
Because they won't fuck. And then here at the end, he's just like, people are neither really shit or really good. They're just people.
Yeah, and like someone I know is extremely nihilist and thinks that he shouldn't live and no one else should live either. And it's like, that's not for you to decide.
Right.
But when he's in that
mentality,
mentality, it's just I am seeing this truth that none of it matters and it should all just burn down.
Yeah.
Why can't you see how awful this is? Telling people like that, get a community, is a really false answer, because if it was that easy to just get a community, they would have one.
Yeah.
And I think that is a big problem in our society, is we don't have third places. You know, we don't have places to meet and build community like maybe we did in other times or in other cultures. I don't know.
Well, it's kind of a big thing with atheism in America, because with church, you've got like a whole little subculture. Like, you've got a bunch of people that you talk to on Sunday. You've got friends. You've got a little extra family going on that you go and visit every single Sunday. But if you're an atheist and you feel like you might lose that, because, you know, atheists don't go around and meet up every Sunday and have a luncheon or something like that.
Right.
We just stay home and be pissed off at God or something.
Yeah. We say our anti-prayers.
Yeah.
Fuck you, God, and fuck this earth, and fuck the sky. Amen.
But yeah, there's a little bit of a lack of community with atheists, because no one's going to gather together under the banner of atheism. So you just have to learn how to make your own little community yourself, you know, without atheism or religion. And I think that's why a lot of people stick with religion, is because I'm part of this big inclusive group. And
we have our secret handshake and we have our secret club.
Yeah.
Are incels considered like an atheist thing?
No, not like exclusively.
Are they less religious as a group? Do you know?
I don't think so. I think how religious you are doesn't really affect how much of an incel you are, potentially.
Because it sounded like you were making a correlation between being an atheist and being an incel and being nihilist.
No, just, you know, there's just really no support structure for atheists the way there are for religious people, is all I was trying to get at.
But I guess also, like, if you are maybe nominally a Christian, but you do feel nihilistic, your concerns are not going to be addressed by anyone at your church. And you might go there and still not have anyone to actually hang out with or talk to.
Well, I think even if you are a Christian, you can still be... Oh, what is it called? There's a distinction. It's a, what's that people that think is just a middle ground between atheism and...
Spiritual?
No, the other one.
Religious?
No, agnostic.
Oh.
You can be an agnostic theist.
Where you just don't care or believe in it, really?
No, like, agnostic means you don't have knowledge. So you don't know God is there, but you believe God is there, which is kind of oxymoron to a degree. So you can kind of think, yeah, there's probably a God, but not know, and still kind of have that nihilism, like, and still have questions like, oh, why does God let people starve in Africa and stuff like that? And you can still get your nihilism in that way and still potentially believe in a God, I guess.
Also, if you are Calvinistic, that could really easily tie into nihilism. Because I think most everyone's going to burn and we're just the special ones who won't.
Yeah, there's also that. Like, if you think you might potentially go to hell, that would really fuck you up.
Well, it's the idea that you personally are elect and all those people who are evil just aren't. And God chose for them not to be.
Yeah.
You know? So, as far as
yeah,
the
we
movie
really
goes,
got off the movie.
I feel like the movie embodied social Darwinism and demanding respect through violence.
Yeah.
And I just felt like Project Mayhem was taking that to its logical conclusion and just creating violence and mayhem to just
satisfy some ape need to do violence.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there really wasn't any... part 2 of that plan. It was just blow things up and go home, sharpen your spear. That's it.
Yeah. And I don't know, especially from the movie, I could see in the last part of it, like, okay, this is a critique. These cult members are really culty. This is really weird. He doesn't have a good life. If this resulted in him having Marla as a wife and getting the CEO corner office and suddenly life is grand, that would be
propaganda.
Right.
But this guy's life is getting continually worse.
Yeah.
I obviously would not want this.
Yeah.
So I should not pursue the things that preceded him doing this.
Yeah.
But when you're an incel like that, all you see is the things that happen moment to moment. So when you're an incel like that and you want some modicum of power, all you're really paying attention to is when Edward Norton is saying, I will go from desk to desk and shoot people in their computer chairs, and you see the boss's look of fear. That's all they're paying attention to. There's no wider thing than just that moment. They just want the ability to look at someone and scare them. They want to be able to have that distant look that Clint Eastwood has when he's about to pull his 45 and hit someone with it or something.
Yeah, it was that I have respect through power and violence. Which reminded me, okay, I had to pause the movie and look at you and be what the fuck? Because they pull that poor Asian kid out of the convenience store and hold a gun to his head and say, what were you going to be in college? A veterinarian. You better goddamn get back to being a veterinarian or you'll be dead in 6 weeks.
Yeah, I'm going to follow you around, and if you don't do it, I'm going to fucking kill you.
If you don't go back to school. And I was like...
Well, the movie says his next meal will be the best meal of his entire life. And I'm just like, no, it wouldn't.
No, we have both experienced being blown up by gas. And I cannot remember my meal after that because I was fucking traumatized and in the hospital.
I was like, ow, ow, my fucking skin.
Yeah. Like, the idea that you can improve someone through violence is so horrifying and gross. And I know that it was the Tyler persona doing this.
Yeah.
And Teddy was looking at him like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is stupid and insane. What are you doing?
But also, and just like I was saying earlier, it goes and it does this thing that's clearly insane. And it's just like, it's got this little pithy reason for it. And then it never goes back and solves it.
Never adjusts it. Yeah, we never go back and meet the kid. We never see him shaking every time he has to go to work.
Right.
We don't see him triple lock his doors and crawl under the bed to sleep.
And having anxiety for the rest of his life.
Having anxiety. And
because someone's after him.
Can you imagine how stressed out you would be in school if you thought that
there's
getting
a
a bad
gunman
grade
watching you
or quitting meant you would die? Like, that is just... And that is the whole thing that they do over and over in this, is violence is the answer to any blank problem.
And I think that is a failure of the movie. And I can kind of understand why they did it because, you know, they're so strapped for time when they're making these movies and stuff like that.
2 hours still.
Yeah. Still a long fucking movie. But in the book, it's actually the narrator, Teddy, is the one that's doing this because he's looking for a reason to not kill someone because he got a homework assignment to kill someone.
Oh,
so
that's a different twist on it.
Yeah,
then.
That is just him robbing this guy of his license so that he can go back to the group and be like, oh, here's the guy I killed.
Oh.
And he's coming up with a reason to not shoot this kid and be like, go back to school, you fuck.
Yeah. Okay. I wish they had pointed that out in the movie or made that clear because it's just Tyler saying we have a homework assignment, but he doesn't say... Did he say to kill someone? I know some of the other people were talking about, like, start a fight. And
they were just doing, like, random vandal shit.
Yeah. So. And then we go with a gun into a convenience store, and it's like, whoa, this escalated.
Yeah, it escalated a lot more clearly in the book.
Okay.
So I feel like the book was done a lot better in a lot of ways, which is my argument a lot of the time anyway.
Yeah.
Also, the author, Chuck Palahniuk, I have to look. He's got a hard to pronounce last name, and I can't remember it. Chuck Palahniuk. Or Palahniuk or something.
Do you know if he's like Polish?
I think he's Canadian. I don't know. He grew up in the Midwest or something. Anyway, I saw a meme that involved like another author. It was something else that incels had adopted. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember what that one was. But it was just like, at least we've still got Fight Club, because the first thing they said was like, oh, this author is gay. And, you know, we don't like this one anymore. At least we've still got Fight Club. But then it turns out that Chuck is also gay.
Oh, gosh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
like he was in the closet at the time when this came out, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's like the bros. Oh, was it the Matrix and the
that was
Wachowski,
the third? Yeah.
Sisters who ended up being trans, but we knew them by their male names
Right.
when that came
and,
out.
you know, incel culture got right leaning, and incel culture got red pilled. So.
God, I hate all of those stupid people on the right who use the red pill, blue pill shit and completely misunderstand all that stuff.
Yeah, there was a note I wrote. It was, when you don't have like any amount of self-awareness, critique becomes propaganda to you somehow. Mm-hmm. So. And
they twist it, and they don't think deeply about.
Well, I think what it is, I've experienced this myself a lot. You have, like, when you watch something like this, you have an intuitive sense of depth. Like, you know, there's some depthy subjects going on in these stories, but you don't know what. So you go for like the deepest thing you can like grasp for at the time, and it's still really fucking shallow. Because especially, you know, when you're like a teenager and stuff like that, and you're trying to grapple with all this stuff, and you just can't think that deeply because your brain isn't finished developing.
Yeah. This was an interesting ride. I will say, there was some pretty funny moments. I felt like they were trying to play off Bob having boobs for laughs. Mm-hmm.
The movie did. The book takes it a little bit more seriously, because the great irony of it is because
he had too much testosterone.
Right. He was a bodybuilder, and his body leveled out the estrogen, which, again, is kind of another metaphor, if you want to think about it that way, is if you try to do all this toxic masculinity stuff, the natural reaction of your body is to try to level that out, because this amount of masculinity and toxic masculinity isn't fucking normal.
It's not sustainable.
Right.
Yeah. But I did feel like they did tone that down after the initial, like, yucks, you know?
Yeah.
And I felt like they did make Bob end up being a very sympathetic character.
Oh, yeah.
And that wasn't quite as gross as I was worried it was going to be.
Yeah, it was the 2000s, so that was comparatively light to what it could have been.
It was comparatively, because I was like bracing myself like, oh my God. And then it was like, oh, okay. I mean, we're having the initial, this was supposed to be for laughs. But then it ended up being, you know, he was welcome in Fight Club and treated like one of the guys and not, they should have given him a much better supportive bra. The entire time I was thinking that must have hurt the actor to be wearing those, because boobs that big really hurt. They're heavy and they make your back and neck hurt. And you have to have very supportive underwear to solve that. Yeah.
But there is another thing. I don't think that the author was intending to have this, but it's also like touching on Fight Club being bad therapy. There's a little bit of something to it. I think, like, just some people, like, not even just men, have the need to express themselves physically, and there's really just not a space for that, like, at all. And, you know, this is not a good form of therapy, but it's a form of therapy, I guess. I don't know. Because nowadays they have, like, rec rooms. You can go in and, you know, get your anger out on some objects. You can go in with like a bat and just like bust shit up. Get your anger out that way. Or you can just join a boxing club or something like that, which I guess they could have back then too. Not the point, but
yeah,
I think that's touching on a thing, like, especially when you're not emotionally available or intelligent, that's the only way you know how to express yourself sometimes as a man who is an emotion idiot, is to all you've got left is the physical, I guess.
And it's reinforced as children. Like little girls, if a boy is mean to her and pulls her pigtails, a mom will say, well, maybe he likes you. As girls, we are raised knowing that men express any emotion through violence. Love, hate, rage, sorrow. We are taught to manage our emotions and men's emotions because any emotion can lead to violence. We have to walk on tippy toes around all of the men in our life. And then even as moms around our sons, because don't crush his ego, don't mommy him. You don't want him tied to your, apron strings, like you're gonna coddle him and make him weak. Like it is reinforced just over and over and over again through our entire lives. And then you see this kind of thing is like, is that just the logical progression of where that goes? Because that's what it feels like. And that just makes me, I'm glad the book is a critique. I hate that the movie is considered a champion.
It really bums me out, especially going back and look at it now. It just got so co-opted by that toxic community.
I'm glad that I was able to watch it with someone who has more understanding of the material, because at the end, I just felt confused. Like, obviously, we're sitting here watching it for a podcast. I have to come up with an opinion about it to do this. But going through it, I was just like, I don't know
what the fuck's happening.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know what their point is. I don't know what the messaging is here. But it's obviously has messaging.
Yeah, I've had a lot of time to marinate on a lot of this shit. And especially, when I was younger, I had a lot of those incel-y kind of tendencies and stuff like that I've grown out of. But, it's very weird going back and watching it now and reading this book because, oh my God, it's so much clearer. And I'm going back to these thoughts I was having the first time, just like, ugh.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to work on material that was so impactful as a kid and then to be an adult and be like, oh, God. I took all the wrong stuff from this.
Yeah, I thought it was great when I was a kid because all the wrong reasons, and now I've got much better reasons to like this movie.
Yes, now we have a better idea of what they were wanting to say.
Which is weird. Like, some movies a lot of people can just like, and they'll just take so many different things from it than other people. So
what really surprised me, like, we had started having white nationalist terrorism in the 90s, late 80s. They had started forming militias and stuff. And then, we had Waco and all that other stuff. And that really helped build Alex Jones and a lot of these online alternative people who were prepping, and seeing the people go into that Project Mayhem thing it made me have some flashbacks because I grew up around people who wanted that exact thing. And that was a little bit horrifying. And also that is where I started getting, he's not on Teddy's side. The author, this is obviously a critique. This is really creepy. And this is when you also saw him respond like, oh, wait, this is messed up, you know? Because they're so over the top culty. When I watched it again yesterday, I'd never thought, this is a cult until then. This is very clearly a cult. And I've known people who were militia members who were very culty. Honestly, I wish people were more aware of how dangerous those groups are. And they continue to be. The biggest source of domestic terrorism is white nationalist groups. Which they're not centered on race or that thing in the movie. Like, not saying that, that's what Project Mayhem was.
Right.
Because they obviously had members who were black and, different ethnicities. But it really did mirror the groups we see today. Like the Proud Boys.
Do you remember, just a little fun fact, I think we're coming to a close in the episode, But do you remember at the beginning when Edward Norton is cycling through all the different groups that he's in, and he gets to the sickle cell group, and him and Marla are the only white people in the group?
Yeah, because
I thought that was funny, and I felt nice about that because I was like, oh, someone actually did their research.
someone did the research. Yeah.
I felt nice about that.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Because he's even showing up in these places that are obviously not geared
he's
toward him.
obviously just as much a fraud as she is in some of these spots. Like, the only reason he clocked her is because she's a woman in a testicular cancer support group.
And that was funny. She told him that she deserves to be there more than him because she
doesn't have
because
testicles.
he still has his balls.
I was like, excellent point.
That is a good point.
Fun fact. I want to get sciencey for a second, just for funs. Do you know why sickle cell actually propagated in certain populations?
Doesn't have to do with West Nile virus.
Not West Nile virus, malaria.
Malaria. Because people who have it don't die from malaria as easily. Right?
It's a thing if you have 2 copies of the gene, one from your mom, one from your dad. If you have 2, you get full-on sickle cell. But if you've only got 1 copy, you get resistance from malaria and no sickle cell. So it's a semi-beneficial trait that sometimes results in sickle cell, but if you've only got 1 copy, you don't get malaria as badly.
Did you know that Queen Victoria's children had sickle cell, and that's why a bunch of them died?
Yeah,
The royal family got it from inbreeding.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Because you don't find it very often in white people because it was generated through reactions to malaria, which is more in
because if you don't have something in the population,
regions.
If you don't have something in the population that's in that situation as a benefit, that trait just kind of
dies out,
kills itself out.
Yeah, because it's so harmful when you have both. Like long term, you don't survive very long if you have that, like into adulthood, right? And it can kill you as a child.
Yeah.
Because you bruise really easily, and then you don't. Doesn't it prevent clotting? Isn't that the issue?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the cells are actually like crescent shaped, like they literally.
Instead of round.
But yeah, with that fun fact, I think we've come to an end on Fight Club, and this was our Christmas special, December special.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. Stretch those bad movies out for another extra month. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Wanted to say I am Bugs-Bibliorex at Blue Sky, and I am skying there a lot.
Is that what you do there?
I don't know what it is called there because on Twitter it's tweeting and X it was Xing.
Maybe you're skiing.
I don't know what we call it on there yet. I joined last week and I just try to share my thoughts on our episodes, but mostly I'm resharing stuff from LeVar Burton and Mark Hamill and all of the other cool dudes who have moved over to Blue Sky. And I'm now blogging on Substack, and my goal there is to just keep the conversation going. I had a lot more thoughts on what was the name of the creationism episode? I don't have that book here.
Gosh.
I'm trying to think.
Hold on. It was written by Tim Chaffee.
The Truth Chronicles.
Yeah, there you go.
I have it in the web page. So I wrote a blog article about the Truth Chronicles and just talking about evolution and how growing up in that creationism bubble, what that does long term and, my problem with creationism. So I'm just hoping maybe some people would be, if you're interested in long form, back and forth chatting, that might be a good place to do it, and other people can chime in. I'm pretty sure I'm Bugs@Bibliorex on Substack.
And also, if you want to suggest a book, you can do it there, or you can do it over at our email, bibliorex@gmail.com.
Or on YouTube, because we see the comments on YouTube.
Yeah.
And thank you to all of our wonderful new listeners. Over October, November, and December, we have seen a whole lot of new downloads and new listeners. And we really hope that you're enjoying it and you continue to hang out with us. I think some of y'all came over from The Scathing Atheist, maybe. And that's really great. We love their stuff and listen to them. And if you can't tell, God Awful Movies was part of our inspiration.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But we do genre way out beyond just Christian stuff. So thank you for being here. And what's your thought?
Go outside and beat the shit out of a stranger.
Touch grass.
And go touch grass and blame women for all your problems.
Blame credit card scores.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.